Very low to my church.
How are you?
Good, man.
Thanks for coming down.
No problem. So you got the clicker there? When you
Excellent.
reference that
No, by the way, I've never used a PowerPoint in my life, so I have no idea how this You're gonna have to guide me through it. So if I get stuck and it won't move, just come down here and
left is backwards, right is forwards, and that's
Cool.
really the only thing you need. If you get in trouble, I can
perfect.
take over up there as necessary.
I'm kind of binary, so that works really well.
I'll have them behind you here to view and off to the side.
I can get one electronically and post it on our website. Yeah, no problem. Email has to be out in the meeting, but I'll be happy. Welcome. I'm going to stand up here if you want. Let me get back.
Yeah, I'll sit right over there. I'm trying to fit everything.
All right, you're welcome.
Glasses. Media folks in the back, you need me to talk yet or not quite yet? 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Give me a thumbs up when you're good. Okay. Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, coming through, loud and clear, media fellows. All right.
Thank you. If everybody will have a seat, we'll get started right now. I don't like podiums, so let me walk around a minute. Let me first of all introduce myself. My name is Brad Jerbick. I'm the city attorney for Las Vegas, and we are here today, obviously, to discuss the Fremont Street pedestrian mall ordinance that is available on both sides of me, on the right and left side. If we run out, we'll have more copies made. To my right, who just walked in, is Councilman Ricky Barlow. Councilman Barlow represents half of Fremont Street. The other half is represented by Councilman Coffin, who may or may not be joining us. I know he was in California looking at a similar pedestrian mall yesterday. Also with us today is Todd Story and Amy Rose, both with the ACLU of Nevada. We also have Jeff Victor on behalf of the Fremont Street Experience. So if you have any questions, we are here to stay as long as you need us. But let me kick this off by inviting you all, first of all, to take a look at our proposed ordinance. Let me first of all tell you how to read it. The way we do ordinance revisions is we underline things that are new, and we put brackets around things that are going to be removed. Relevant to today's conversation are a number of things, but particularly on page 15, section 11.68.108, that starts at line 5, deals with the who, what, whens, and wheres, and goes into the registration process, which I imagine is what most of all of you are here for today. Let me stop by saying, before we looked at revising the existing Fremont Street Experience ordinances, we looked at street performers in other cities on the west coast of the United States, particularly 4 places, 2 in Santa Monica, 1 in San Francisco, and 1 in Seattle. In Santa Monica, they have the 3rd Street Promenade, which is actually what we kind of based our Fremont Street Experience model on 20 years ago. The 3rd Street Promenade is a street that's been closed to the public. They don't have a canopy, but they have a pedestrian wall, they have a median in the middle, and they have a number of street performers who come there every year for the chance to be exposed to potential people in the media industry who might discover them, might give them a contract or something. It's become a very popular attraction, and the street performers have become an integral part of the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica. It's our hope that it can be integrated into the downtown area the same way. So believe me when I start by saying Fremont Street and the city of Las Vegas welcome street performers. What we're here to talk about is the best way to unroll it that gives you a secured place to perform, gives the public a less chaotic environment, and gives the tourist a reason to come back to visit downtown Las Vegas. Of the places that we looked at, let me just go over for a moment to put this all in perspective, because we're going to talk about registration versus permits. We're going to talk about locations. We're going to talk about rotation and the like. Let me start with the places that we looked at. The Santa Monica Pier in Santa Monica, California, is public and has regulations. The 3rd Street Promenade I just mentioned is public and is regulated. Pike's Place in Seattle, Washington, another very popular spot for street performers, regulated. And most recently, those of you who have traveled to San Francisco know that the city of San Francisco recently engaged in regulations for street performers on Fisherman's Wharf. And this did not occur because anybody wanted to stop people from street performing. But at some point in time, there is give and take, and we just have to acknowledge that at the beginning of this meeting. The public has a right to move up and down that mall. People have a right to shop. People have a right to visit wherever they're going to visit. And you have an absolute right to perform. And trying to integrate these two in a way that protects your rights, public's right to have a good time and enjoy their freedoms, is what we're here today. I want to mention, before we get to what the city of Las Vegas is proposing by way of registration, that in each of these other places, they don't have registration, they have permits. And I want to emphasize, we are not, repeat, not asking you to get a permit to perform. We are not charging a price for registration. We are not releasing your information to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, nor are we doing background checks on you. And I'll repeat that as we get more into registration in a moment. But let me let you know what other cities are doing that we rejected, so you know where we started. In Santa Monica, at the pier, there's a $37 a year permit required January, and is processed through the city. At the 3rd Street Promenade, it's $37 a year, and it's also revocable. You need a permit to perform, and it's revocable. In Pike's Place, it's $30 a year. And in San Francisco, it varies. It's $50 a calendar month or $500 a calendar year. And they publicize performance times for the performers. So these are the things that we looked at. And what we decided is we do not want to be in the permitting business. We have no right to pick and choose who gets a permit. We have no right to pick and choose who gets revoked and what the reasons are, and we do not want to be in that business. There is only one reason that permits are proposed in this ordinance right now, and that is because a number of people perform either with painted face or in full costume where we don't know who they are. And there have been allegations over the last several years that from time to time a busker gets involved in a dispute with a patron, and we do not know who they are. We've had a situation where a painted-faced performer used a taser on an individual to collect money. We had situations where somebody costumed held a child while a woman went to an ATM to get money. These are things that I think we can all agree are unacceptable. And if something like that happens and we need to know, then we have the ability to know, and that's the only purpose for permitting. And if you have any better ideas than that today, we're here to hear them. But that is the only motivation behind permits. We're not doing background checks. We're not running you. Everybody has a First Amendment right to be in that mall. And let me state that again. Everybody has a First Amendment right to be in that pedestrian mall. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your background. You can be a convicted felon. You can be in that mall, and that is your right, and it's not our right to know. We only care if there's a problem, and that's why it's written the way it is, and we tried to be the least intrusive we could possibly be. Second, we looked at performance times, and we looked at what's going on right now in the mall, because the way we divided it up a while ago is we basically told you where you couldn't be. The old ordinance says you can't be within X many feet of a doorway. You can't be within X many feet of an ATM. You can't be within 10 feet of a kiosk. And you can't be within 200 feet of one of the 2 operational stages when the stages are in operation. That's what the current ordinance says. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's very, very difficult to enforce. Because by the time somebody gets to a complaint, the person may be away from the area where they're precluded from being, and no police officer carries with them a tape measure saying what's 9.5 feet versus 10.5 feet, and it's very difficult to enforce. What they did in Santa Monica, and this is where a large part of our idea came from, is they have distance separations between performers of 40 feet. And so that's what we have adopted, is a 40-foot distance separation. And what we have adopted is a rotation system so nobody gets excluded from performing. It is impossible by the size of this crowd to know how many street performers there really are in Fremont Street. Clearly not everybody who performs in Fremont Street is here today. And it varies depending on what time of day it is. It might be as many as 50 to 90 to 100 late at night. It may be as few as just a few during the daytime. Go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt, but perhaps maybe we can address these one at a time. Where you said with the permit system and how many people there are, we've identified 200 performers, and an average night there's 120 to 140. Now, we represent a majority of those as the union. If we had a name tag badge system that they could wear, we could put a number on there that doesn't identify their name to the public. However, if the street performer did something unlawful, addressing these issues one at a time might be the most productive for everything. I'm Michael Shoremore, President and General Counsel of the Sonic Labor Visual Entertainers Union. And one of the issues would be, how do we know the identities of these people? Without probable cause, it's unlawful to ask for the identities of these people in some form of registration system. I would propose that we could have a name badge system that has a number so the person could keep their identity private. However, if a tourist had a problem with them, they could say, the union member from Sonic Labor 008, you guys could come to us and we could disclose that if there was an allegation. And then that way, it wouldn't violate their right to privacy.
I appreciate that, and to be honest with you, our registration system envisions that. It does not envision you having a name tag with your name on it. Okay? All right, we'll get to that. I'm just going to finish this overview, and then I'm going to back up, and we're going to go over the individual pieces of it. But I wanted to give you the kind of the overview right now so that you understand what we are proposing. And again, this is a proposal. The only people that count are the 7 elected members of the City Council, one of which is here today, and they'll make the ultimate determination of this on September 2nd. When it comes to the rotation system, it's every 2 hours. That's what they do in Santa Monica, every 2 hours, on the hour. Remember, these reservation spots only occur between 3 in the afternoon and 2 in the morning. Okay? It's an 11-hour period. Those are the peak hours that we've been able to identify. During that period, if you want to be in a reserved area, as detailed on this map we'll talk about in a moment, you have to be registered. If you're registered, your registration will not contain your identity. It will have something more innocuous, but it will say that you are registered so that we know that you're registered. So if somebody says, I want to be in that spot to perform, and somebody unregistered is there, the unregistered person gets kicked out and the person who's registered goes in. So if you want to be registered, that's the way it is. And the other thing is every hour on the hour starting at the odd hour. So if you get there at 3, you have the spot from 3 to 5. At 5 o'clock, you have to move to another spot. This is what they do in Santa Monica, and they have a pretty well-oiled machine that took a few months to get moving, but when they got it moving, every performer in the area knows to move to another spot, and you cannot pre-reserve a spot. So if you have a prime spot, you will have it for a while, and you may have it later in the evening, but you won't have it for more than 2 hours. And then you have to move, and so everybody has an equal opportunity for those prime spots. And again, I've talked to performers, and I know the prime spots vary depending on what kind of performance you give. Some areas of the mall have areas for larger crowds, some don't. No, you can perform 24 hours a day. The performance zones go into effect at 3 o'clock. Before that, it's what you have right now. It's distance separations. But at 3 o'clock, that's when the performance zones go into effect. No. Before 3 o'clock, you can be anywhere you want as long as you're 10 feet from a kiosk, 20 feet from a doorway, things like that.
I got a question on the where certain performers are going to be. Say if I get a spot out there, I get one of the circles, and then some guy with a drum thing sets up right across from me, the bucket drums. Those give me headaches. I never work by them. I find another spot down farther to where they're going. What's going to happen then? Are they going to have to move either me or him? Or am I going to have to stand there and listen to that all night for two hours?
I've heard that complaint as well. One of the things that's in this ordinance that's not going to perfectly solve your problem is we're changing the way we measure noise and the decibel levels in the mall. In Santa Monica, the decibel levels are measured at 1 foot with a decimeter. And I've been down there many times and walked the mall with the individual who supervises the mall, and there's a lot of cooperation with the street performers. There are people that bring full bands, full drum sets and guitars, and they will hold a decimeter within a foot of them. They'll say, turn it down, you're over by this or over by that. The same will apply to the drums. Drums are drums. They're going to always make more noise than somebody just talking, but that's the First Amendment. It doesn't recognize the difference between the two, but we will have a noise limit. Well, I'll be honest with you. When we had one of our first meetings at Fremont Street Experience to discuss this, kind of a kickoff meeting, their offices overlook Slotzilla. And during the middle of the meeting, the drums set up outside the window, and we couldn't conduct our meeting because the drums were that loud. So I understand. Go ahead. What is the decibel level in here? Yes, it is. Okay. Decibel levels in the ordinance. So let me go real quickly to this map that is to my left. And this will be the last part, then I'm going to shut up. I don't want to hear from you. This map was generated by the Fremont Street Experience. It was generated by a program called AutoCAD, so it's exactly to scale. This is an accurate representation of the pedestrian mall as it exists today. On the surface of this map, you will see several things. You will see green circles that come away from these little half circles. The half circles are the kiosks. And the green circle is 10 feet from the kiosks, which is where nobody can be when they're performing, or soliciting, or anything else for that matter. The little round circles that have numbers or letters in them are the performance zones that are proposed. These will be painted on the mall surface. I want to make a correction real quick to the ordinance. I caught it this morning, and I brought it to the attention of the ACLU as well. On page 15, line 21, it says essentially that the city shall use its best efforts to provide no fewer than 38 designated locations. We are taking out the words best efforts. We are providing 38 locations, period. So that's 38. When the bands aren't operating or anything else, there'll be 38 6-foot circles on the mall that will either have a number or a letter. The difference between the numbering and the lettering is this. 1 through 27 are performance zones that are available all the time between 3 in the afternoon and 2 in the morning. Those are the ones that you can get at the top of the hour of the odd hour and keep for 2 hours and then move to another one. They will always be there unless there's a special event, and those are very rare. One of them, for example, is New Year's Eve. Fremont Street closes the whole mall that night. That's been going on for 20 years. But just one moment, let me just finish this real quick, and then I'll take your comments because I need to get this out. The other circles have a letter of the alphabet. Those circles are within 100 feet of the permanent stages in the Fremont Street Experience. Those are available when the permanent stages aren't in use for a concert or a tour or whatever it is that they do on the stages. When the stages are in use, there's a 100-foot circle that goes out. Right now it's 200 feet. We're reducing it to 100 feet. And within that 100 feet, there can be no street performers during the performance on stage. When it's done, they go back into operation. So the 38 includes the ones within the 100 feet of the stage. There are 11 of them, and they come and go as performances come and go. But as you know, you're out there during the evening, you know how often there's a big performance. They're usually available most of the time. So that's the proposal right now. And with that, what I'd like to do is stop and hear your comments.
Brett, before we begin with the comments, we're going to start with this gentleman here. This gentleman was next, and then, ma'am, you were next. I'm keeping track of everyone. So, but before we even go further, I would like to recognize that we have Councilman Bob Beers in the room as well. Councilman, if you would please raise your hand so everyone can see you. Please stand. Thank you for being here. And also to my immediate right, we have Councilman Stavros Anthony, also here as well. So just want to let you all know that we do have a number of elected officials in the room and your council representatives here to hear from you. So please share with us your thoughts in that process. So with that, we'll start with the gentleman to my immediate right.
Hi guys. I think we all know each other. Morning. Stogie, I've had a little assistance over the past years. I've been doing street performing strictly as a fun thing, a way of polishing the different acts that I represent, and mostly as a hobby, just something to do instead of sitting at home. About 4 years ago, these issues were coming up. So about 4 years ago, I drew up a proposal. I gave it to City Council twice. I gave it to Fremont Street. This is where you got the spots from. This is the idea. You got that from Fremont Street. I gave it to them. Robert, head of security, I gave it to him, and he loved the idea. I got the idea because I used to work at Disneyland in Magic Mountain. When I worked at Magic Mountain, Taz Devil always had, not a spot, the area by the petting zoo and the Buccaneer, which means they wanted their acts, their characters, to stroll within the area, attended by an assistant because, of course, the heat passing out in those heavy costumes. Well, my proposal is simply this. Whether it's permitted or not, rules have to be followed. Conduct, politeness, courtesy, cleanliness, keeping your area clean, and working not in singles, but in teams for safety, because we all know we work nights, and we all know stuff has happened. So always work in teams. These are things that I had put in my proposal for you guys to look over. It's chaos basically right now. It's just free for all. I like the idea, and I was the one that submitted the idea for the areas, not spots. I don't think the problem is that you have people that work 2 or even 4 to a team. When I do my character Smokey and the Bandit, I mean, I could be talking with a person, and then Bandit's there, and Snowman's there, and Junior's there, and there's 4 of us. There is no way 4 people in a team is performing within a 6-foot radius. No way. It's very safe, though, because everybody is, working as a team. But I think safety and those other points are really the big issues. Also, this distance between each performer and not disrupting each other. So take a look and give a review, and you're welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen and distinguished councilmen. My name is Scarlett Ray Watt. I'm a ventriloquist. I've appeared at the highest levels on television as a 7-year-old, on the BBC, headlined New York, all over the world. Now, I must say, I heard, Councillor, your statement regarding you'd taken the blueprint, literally, from Santa Monica, 3rd Street Promenade, to which I worked for 2 years, and it's a nightmare for performers. It's a total nightmare. You could have looked into what Bourbon Street, New Orleans, have done, and I've worked there. I've worked the pier, so I have toured, and I've been out there on the street as a performer, in the heat. So can you imagine a performer dressed in a costume, or a performer, and you have to move every 2 hours. You have to break down your equipment. That may take you 40 minutes or so to move again. In Santa Monica, they come up to you in the segways, and you literally have to stop what you're doing. And if you overrun by 5 minutes, you get penalized. I have got a permit. I've got old permits from Santa Monica, and they were $36 then, and it does not work. So for this council to use that as a blueprint, that's ridiculous. Now, secondly, as a performer, I respect people who go out there and do it on the ground. They do it on the floor. People can sit in council. I don't see any performers who work the street living in Summerland. We're not millionaires. We do it for a passion. That's why we do it. Somebody like me with my resume, do you think I need to be out there in that type of heat? Really? So, you know, we've got to be frank. And the media who's here, let's be straight with the media. They put stories in the newspapers here about corralling performers. The last I heard, and I've studied English language, that's what you use for animals. This is the type of climate that performers have to endure when they work in Las Vegas. So that's my speech for today. I want to give everybody else an opportunity to speak. But please do not be fooled that Santa Monica and the Pier is any quality blueprint that this council, where you pay your taxes, should go off of. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Norma MacDonald, and I just represent one of you guys, but I have been following this whole meeting for a while, and I'm just going to address some of the circle that you discussed right now. You said there's 11 that will not be performing areas during the concert times or the stage times. So that leaves 27. How are you going to evaluate the rotation based on the amount of performers out there? Because certainly there's a lot more than 27 performers at one time. I have walked the area many times and evaluated what transpires out there. Yes, I do agree there are some restrictions that need to be done and some weeding that needs to be done, but this rotation, the rotation can mean many things. It can mean that you're going to another circle, or it can mean that you're only going to work for 2 hours that day. So how are you going to, what do you have in place that's going to accommodate everyone involved?
That's a good question. One, we don't have anything in place at this moment, but there will be if the ordinance passes. What we will have is one person dedicated to the mall during these performance periods that will walk the mall literally up and down the street and ensure, just as in Santa Monica, or they have an individual that does the same thing, will ensure that the decibel levels are being complied with, will ensure that the performers move. If there's a dispute amongst performers, it will be up to that person to resolve it. And like I say, I respect everybody's opinion about the Santa Monica model, but we have been down there. We've also met with performers that have a different opinion. But that's what we'll have. We will also have, and we have members of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department with us here today who have told the city that when and if this ordinance passes, if it is amended, they want to be trained as well as to what the new rules are. And we will spend time. And I think you will see an enhanced presence in the pedestrian mall, whether it's city or metro or both. We'll be out there making sure that this is complied with. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Jervik, and Councilman, all of you who are present, especially Councilman Coffin and Barlow for bringing this issue up. Obviously, this wouldn't be here in front of us today if there were not a problem, and I know that a lot of thought has gone into this, and I think that there may be more that goes into it before it's all said and done. I work for a labor organization. I'm not a performer. I am not a busker, and I do not pursue either self-gratification through street performance or earning money through street performance. But frequently, I and members of my organization engage in what would be considered expressive activity as defined in your proposed ordinance. We leaflet, we banner, we engage in certain types of activities that would be regulated and restricted by your proposed ordinance, and we do so with specific targets, targeted entities that may be properties that are on the mall. Recently, the Fremont Hotel. We've engaged in activities that have targeted the Golden Gate, targeted the D Hotel. And for us, the zones are problematic, specifically for that reason. And there are legal reasons behind that. And I think that those are some of the things that, for us as organizations, are problematic with this ordinance because of the fact that we are described as entities that engage in expressive activities. We appreciate what it is that the City Council is trying to do to address the problems that exist downtown. We have no issue with the city attempting to do so, but we're concerned that we're regulated by this and that it will not only inhibit our ability to engage in those activities, that if we engage in the activities as prescribed by the ordinance, that we will be in violation of another type of law.
Understand. If I can address that for a moment. This meeting is addressed at the street performance component of this ordinance. Nothing in this ordinance addresses or limits expressive activity, whether you are a solicitor, or you're engaged in union activity, or a picketer, or a leafleter, or any other type of expressive activity. These performance zones apply only to registered street entertainers. With respect to union activity, whether it's pickets, or it's leafleting, or organizing, you have all the rights under the First Amendment that existed before, and this ordinance is not intended, nor does it interfere with any of those. And let me state one more thing. For those of you who are labor people here, you're aware of the National Labor Relations Act. Under the Constitution of the United States, this many rights are guaranteed. You can never go below that. That's the form of government we have. But you can go above that. And sometimes Congress or other laws give more rights to groups than otherwise exist in the Constitution. And there are cases under the National Labor Relations Act that absolutely guarantee your right to picket and to organize that we cannot interfere with in any ordinance, and we don't. And so I want to assure you this will not affect your ability to do any of those expressive activities at all.
I'm fully aware of the rights that are guaranteed under the National Labor Relations Act. However, we do engage in First Amendment activity as well. And on page 4, line 2 through 7, it describes expressive activity, and I'm just concerned with that definition.
Perhaps you and I can meet afterwards, or we can meet, because we have plenty of time between now and the council meeting. I'll love to sit down with you, and if we've got some changes to make, we'll be glad to make them.
Yes, my name is...
You want to go back and forth on this, and what we'll do is...
I'll control it, but I just want to recognize that we do have Mayor Goodman here.
Right. Welcome, Mayor. Thank you. I do want to state for the record that under Nevada's open meeting law, if the council were to meet and were to deliberate on anything, we would need to notice and post it. We have a quorum of the council here right now. That does not... Oh, we lost one? Okay. If there were more than a quorum of the council here, as long as there's no discussion between the council members and no deliberation, sitting here and observing this meeting does not violate the open meeting law. And so I just want to state that for the record. So you're welcome to stay and give me your comments at the end.
Yes, my name is George Adams, and I'm one of the vendors. We've been a vendor there for about 9 years, so I've seen everything that goes on over there. And actually, we're all here for one thing. We don't want the hand that feeds us, which is the tourists, to bite us. And right now, reputation is everything in downtown, because the more better the reputation, the more tourists come downtown. And that's what we're all after. I have no problem with any of the people that are here. They always seem to act accordance to what they're supposed to do, except for a few. And that comes down under the heading of noise. I have had street performers that come right next to my kiosk and play drums that they get from Walmart. And the echo from the concrete to the echo that's around us, we cannot do anything because of the noise. And we go up there, we politely tell them, would you please move? And they're very belligerent. They say, we have a right to be here. I said, we have a right also to hear what our customers have to say. We cannot get that across because they play it so loudly that you cannot interpret anything. We have doors in our thing, and we close the doors, and still the noise comes through. So what do we have an action to do is I call to the police department. And when I called at the police department, they do have them moved. Yes, they do, because they're disturbing my peace. And that is my biggest problem. Next, there is another problem. is people that solicit it. They walk out from the buildings that they rent, not from the vendors, but from the building itself. I'll name one of them is Viva Las Vegas. It's a liquor store. They have people that sell real estate there. They come out past my place, around it, they go 40 feet, and it's very aggravating because all of a sudden the people run away from them, all right? And when they run away from them, they cause my business to go down. They actually, not one, there's 4 of them. They go around. I went to them and I says, please, look, 15 feet is enough from your building. You have a lot of public that goes there. They say yes, but 2 hours later, they're doing it back again. So the 2 issues that I have here with the city council, which I really appreciate that this is happening. All the vendors here that I know, they're always perfect gentlemen. Always keep in line. Always do what they're supposed to do. I have no problem with them. The problem is when there's a singer or when there's a drums, it gets so aggravating that it's bad. All the rest of the singers that with the microphones, they're very polite. They play lower. But just one out of all of them, maybe 2, sing beyond what they're supposed to do. They put the microphone as loud as they can and sing from the top of their lungs. I think if they don't use the microphone, they can do just as well. That's how high their voices are. But the rest of them, the singers, like there's a couple of people here that sing and play guitar. They keep it low. They keep it fine. And that's not the problem. The problem is just the few. And when I called for them to come over with the box to measure their distance, they don't have one. They have to rent one. And by the time they come down, they lower the music down. They see it happening. So that's the reason I'm here. Now, Jeff his hands been tied a lot of times. And I guess Jeff appreciates this also because this agenda became to a point where it's at now. And I applaud the city for what they're doing.
And let me just say this, Brad. I need everyone to keep their comments to a minimum. We have a lot of people that we need to get through, so just please keep your comments to a minimum. And when you ask your question or you state your concern, you may feel free to go ahead and take your seat so that we can get more people in so that we can continue to describe what your issues are. Thank you. Yes, sir.
How you doing? My name is Jonas Ford, and I am a bucket drummer and a street performer as well. I've been doing it on and off for the last couple of years now. And first of all, I'd like to thank the council actually I appreciate, them taking action because there are, some rules and stuff that need to be in place because it is a chaotic environment right now at nighttime. I totally agree. However, there is a certain amount of action that needs to be taken, but needs to be considered on how it's being taken. Like first and foremost, I have worked on the Santa Monica Pier, and I've worked out in Santa Monica before, and it is chaotic. It's not the model system that you think it is. For all performers. I've performed out there for about 1.5 years or so, and it is not the model system. It really isn't. It is chaotic as well. It's like an organized chaos, if you would say. And but it doesn't work for everyone. It's cool for certain performers. They have no problem, but it does not work for everyone. Me being included in that, when I did perform down there. I have a lot of equipment that I use, that I set up, and tear down and set up time takes a good amount of time for me. So if we were to rotate every 2 hours, that's not 2 hours for me. That is about an hour, 15 hour, 20 minutes for me total of performance time, and that just won't work. It won't work, and it's not just for me, but that's for other performers who also have a lot of equipment that they set up and tear down too as well. And it just wouldn't work because not only is there way more performers than 27 spots, it's not guaranteed that you're going to another spot. You're not working for the rest of the day if you if you come out there, and it's just not going to work. And I know that firsthand because I worked out there and I know how it is. And yes, I can get a little loud sometimes, and I do apologize for that. But I'm very cooperative. Anytime I have police or I have security come up to me, I'm very cooperative. I never give anyone a hard time. I've actually came encounter with some of the Metro police back there before, and they can attest that I'm very cooperative. I can't speak for all bucket drummers, but I know for myself I'm very cooperative and I can't get loud. However, it just won't, the rotation, just won't work. Registering is fine. I'm totally fine with that. I'm sure a lot of people are. But the rotation, that's just one thing that just will not work. So, thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Gregory Poindexter. I'm known as GP Entertainer. I'm also known as Rick or Rick James because I used to work out at nights. I've been here in Vegas 16 years as a professional entertainer, multi-vocal impressionist, Rick James impersonator. I'm on the streets firstly because I love entertaining. And the entertainment business here in Las Vegas, all the contests I've won, TV, Tony Soccer Show, Live at 9, everything that I've done, benefits and everything, and I still can't get real work here. So I'm forced to be on the streets, okay? But I love to entertain. And we bring, my partner and I, we bring a top quality, classic, soul, pop, blues, jazz, country. We have a wide journey of what we do. And people like what we do. I agree with the English name. This rotation thing, it's just not going to work. I think we need to find another way here in Las Vegas to deal with that. Me being on the streets is my life now. I don't make money another way because the doors in Las Vegas won't open for me. You can Google me, GP Entertainer, see my videos or whatever, see the quality, the type of quality entertainment that I bring. I don't agree with the spots, it's fine. The rotation, I myself personally, I don't think it's going to work. It's definitely not going to work for me. I have equipment as well that I bring out, and I bring out top-notch professional equipment. I try to go with the ordinances. Sometimes I might get a little loud too with my PA folks. You know, I know it's 70 decibels at 50 feet. Sometimes I get 73, 75. I have my own meter as well, so I check myself, okay? But this rotation thing, just not going to work with me. I have to be out there at least 6 days a week just to cover my head. So where am I guaranteed that I'm going to get these 5 to 6 days a week to make a decent living as a professional entertainer? Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Guillermo Mariani. I'm a citizen of this country, but I was born in Argentina, born and raised in Argentina. So I play like as a Spider-Man, Fremont since 2012, but I've been playing all around the world, London, Barcelona, Madrid, France, everywhere. But I found in this place, in Fremont I found I don't know, like my family. And I don't know, it's sad that they want to do that stuff because I have a $3,000 suit and I work like sometimes 7 hours to get just like $150. So I don't think all the things that they're gonna do, they're gonna do it for make it better. Because if you go to a touristic place, like all the things and all the ones that I say, if you go to London, Barcelona, no matter what you do, it's gonna be crowd and all the time because it's a touristic place. So doing that stuff, you're not gonna fix anything. So no matter if there's no performers, when you go to London, Barcelona, you can even walk because it's full of tourists. This is Las Vegas. So there is no way only because you're going to put some spots, there's not going to be crowd. It's going to be crowd all the time. So if you go to the strip, you can even walk. Even where there is no characters, you can even walk. So what I'm saying is, I mean, I know that there is some characters they're kind of like, I don't like them, but I don't judge them because it's not my duty. It's like we are all humans, and there's bad humans and good humans, so, I mean, they all have the right to be there. I don't like some of them, but I said, it's not my problem. I got to make my money. I know, like, I want they all, they have his job. So what I'm saying is all the things they're going to do is not going to work. It's just going to, because, I mean, you don't know everything that's going on in Fremont. And sometimes, for example, people that work in the business, in the souvenirs, Fremont don't let us talk to us. So they say, they say that we cannot talk to you because you are a street performer. So they don't want to do that because they want to do everything right. They want to do this for stop little by little to be there. So that's it I want to say.
Yes, sir.
My name is Billy Williams. I've been working Fremont for about 6 years now. I do balloons. I'm a magician, plus I sing with my partner there. The only issues I have, as far as the registration, I'm 100% on with that. That's fine. As far as the spaces and the rotation, I know there's probably twice as many performers are here that go down there. So if you have anywhere from, what was it, 28 to 38 spots or whatever, I think that's going to be a problem because, like it was addressed earlier, how do you know if you're going to work that night? You might go down there if you've got 38 spots and you're number 39 and it's first come, first serve, you might be done. Because I was reading about, I went into some of the street performer forums in Santa Monica, and there was a magician there that said he's been in Santa Monica for like 3 years, and he used to work, well, actually no longer than that I think. He had to be because of the ordinance, but he said that he used to work like, 5 days a week, no problem. Now he said he feels lucky if he gets 1 day a week. So you're basically reducing it down to you may or may not go. It's, it's almost like a crapshoot. But also my other problem, if you're in a spot, let's say you get into a spot, you're there 10 minutes. If you have, say, a medical condition where you have to go to the bathroom, because I do sometimes, if you have to go to the bathroom and I'm in that spot for 15 minutes, do I lose that spot because I have to go to the bathroom? Oh, okay. So is there like a reservation part of that, or?
Again, I'll wait for all of your comments, but I'm writing this down.
Oh,
I'll come back to it when you're done.
Okay. So that was one thing, and I know it seems kind of trivial, but it is a serious problem. Let's see what else was. Oh yeah, the main thing I wanted to find out. I know that the panhandlers with the signs, they're not regulated. Now, some of the panhandlers, they actually look decent, but some of them not so good. So let's say I'm in a spot, and because the panhandlers aren't regulated, I get 2 really bad ones on either side of me. Then I'm stuck in that spot, and that looks bad on me. That looks bad on what I'm doing, because when I go down there, I dress like this or better. I always have a suit on, sometimes even a full zoot suit. So I never look bad. I always stay professional. I always try, because I truly, honestly believe, and this may sound kind of stupid, but I represent myself, Fremont, and the city. I always try to represent in a very, very positive light. And anybody that's been down there as long as I have will tell you that. And thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will answer your question.
And go ahead and clap. We appreciate you representing yourself, Fremont Street, and most importantly, the city. We appreciate that. Just to eliminate the redundancy, the rotation, we have it written down. All right? So if you're going to come to the microphone, please don't repeat what someone else has said, because we do have it written down. So I'm constantly hearing the rotation doesn't work. So we got it loud and clear. Thank you.
And let me go just a step further. This is being recorded, and it will be rebroadcast later on Channel 2, but I'm having the whole meeting taped so that none of your comments will be lost, and we will be listening to it. And if we need more meetings, we'll do that too. With that, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Council. My name is Jared Carl. I've been a street performer with my girlfriend doing balloons pretty much full-time for about 2 years now. We're a fixture down there in a hot air balloon costume that blinks. Come and see us sometime. Over this time, we've witnessed the deterioration of street performance down there. I agree with the council completely. Things have changed over the last few years. However, I believe that largely these problems are enforceable by enforcing existing laws, that the bad apples that are doing these things can be picked out. And one thing I don't know if the council is aware of, and again, I'm not trying to make any enemies by saying this, we all are trying to make street performance at the highest level, so I apologize if I offend any of my fellow street performers with my comments, but one of the things that has led to this deterioration is individuals running costume delivery and rental services, where they bring down the costumes and require no upfront payment. So they put the people into the costumes. At the end of the night, these people owe money for what they've done. In and of itself, that's not a problem. When it becomes a problem is when these are the unmaintained costumes that are being complained about on the news. These are the ones that are having pictures taken of them, and it lowers the barrier to entry for street performance. Generally, to be a street performer, you have to have a skill or something you wish to display for the public, something exemplary that you wish to show, and then the courage to stand in front of a crowd and do it. When it becomes a job that is cast for on Craigslist, and you get people answering ads and showing up not knowing what they're doing, being put in a costume and put outside, they're not performers. They're not doing it for the right reason. They're doing it for money. They may not know the right reasons, and that's when you get approaches for money. That's when you get aggressive people, people that feel like they're owed, rather than people that feel like, if I shine, you'll wish to reward me. If I do an amazing job, I don't have to ask for a tip. You'll want to give me one, and if you don't, that's fine. Having studied the ordinance, there's also a couple of other small things that I wish to be addressed just so that they don't become a problem later. One is, I've heard of a staging area. Like whoever wants to circle next will potentially be waiting in a staging area. This is a problem like the other gentleman that does balloons had mentioned, that if the act who's coming next, and no judgment of them, but what if it's someone who is mostly naked and I'm making balloons for children? They're waiting in the staging area directly behind me for their next shot at this 2-hour spot. Families are not going to approach me for balloons based on who's staged behind me. So that becomes an issue. The overlap between panhandlers and street performers is larger than people realize. It's a Venn diagram. So when we make these rules, there's a good 20 or 30 people that will not be in costumes. They will instead have cardboard signs, and we have a new problem to deal with, which is possibly more unseemly. And decibel level, one thing I wanted to check with you. It seems in the current ordinance that it only applies to amplified, electronically amplified sound. It seems as though you're saying now it will also include acoustic.
Everything.
Okay, so like acoustic sounds like bucket drums or school drums, those will also be...
Correct. Your own
Okay.
voice, modulated or not.
Okay, that's one thing that I wanted to do. And like I said, the overlap with expressive activity. Will we, by creating rules that only apply to a subset, drive other people? Like, as a silly example, but does it bypass the rules, what keeps a guy in an Elmo costume from saying cardboard sign? New ordinance put me out of work. I'm a homeless Elmo. Now, technically, he's not street performing. Now he's a panhandler.
Right. I'll address that too.
And has bypassed the rules.
I'll address it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Summers. I want to just say thank you for taking the time to listen to these matters. So it seems the city has taken a look at Santa Monica as the example to use those kind of rules for Fremont Street. However, it's been clear from the other performers, they said those rules are far from perfect. Santa Monica has gotten away with their licensing scheme and performance spot rotation because no one has challenged it yet. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals court has already said that street performance permits are really no good, and you can find that in Berger versus City of Seattle from 2008. I don't think performance zones and spot rotation is a good idea because it's totally arbitrary and there are no metrics to support its implementation. And its enforcement is going to be impossible. Can you imagine a police officer standing at these designated locations with a clipboard and a sign-in sheet and a stopwatch? I certainly can't.
I've got 2 points to make. I make actually. You notice all the people that are here, all the performers that are here right now. There's well over 38 of us here. Why only 38 spots? Why don't you make more spots to accommodate some of the performers that are not going to be able to get out there?
Let me take all your comments, but I will specifically address that issue.
That's one thing that really bothers me. That's only
I understand,
38
and I
spots.
would bother me
Okay,
too. But let me address that when you're done, and I'll put that
Another
down.
thing that you had mentioned earlier about the performers that have painted faces, I'm a Gene Simmons lookalike. I had an incident, you described an incident where a guy had to use a taser to get a tip from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there was an incident with me, basically the same thing, except I wasn't going after a tip. Some drunken idiot came up, pushed me, and said, F you.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked back, I don't know, F you. You know, if somebody's going to do me, I'm going to do the same thing back to him. And then he started coming after me. He pushed me first, you know, which really ticked me off. And he started coming after me, and his buddies were trying to hold him back. He was just drunk, wanting to fight. I told his buddies, hold him back or he's going to be sorry. Mm-hmm. And I told him about 25 times. He kept coming at me. He hit me 3 times. The third time, I said, to hell with it. Took my zapper and zapped him right in the chest. It stopped him instantly. And the only reason I did that was because he actually hit me 3 times before I actually got aggressive and went after him. And it wasn't because of a tip or anything like that. I just want to make sure that you know what happened. And I heard through the grapevine, there was one guy that filmed the whole thing. And the only thing that you guys saw here in the council, I believe they showed it, was me reaching out and zapping the guy. Which basically said that the characters are getting aggressive out there and zapping people with their thing. That's not what happened. He was coming after me. And my partner is here right now that was there that could confirm that whole thing because he stood there and watched it.
Thank you.
One other thing about the circles on that and coming down and having to register, it takes me 3.5 hours to put my makeup on and get my costume ready and get down there. If I don't get down there in time to register, all that time putting the makeup and everything on is wasted for the night. I got to go down. I can go down to the strip, but now because of your rule, there are going to be more people going down to the strip and taking the spots there, which are good, and it's just going to cause a whole major hassle.
Understood.
Thank you.
And let me say this also. This is televised. You'll catch it in a minute.
Did I say something I shouldn't?
That's okay. You're fine.
I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
Hello,
Please, go
everyone. My
ahead.
name's Frank. I'm a street performer. I have a high-energy interactive breakdance show. My main concern are the 6-foot circles in radius. I don't think it's enough because I breakdance, arms extended out past 6 feet, and I have 3 other people that are in my crew as well, and I would have at least 200 people around my show. So that's my main concern.
Jerry Lechner, street performer and licensed as a business and tax paying under the municipalities of City of Las Vegas, Secretary of State, and Nevada tax registration. Currently, it seems like in the past, there's already been some problems with arbitrary enforcement. Showgirls, pasty girls, big cleavage, trumps superheroes or cartoons anytime. And there's been arbitrary enforcement by the FSE. Let's say there's been many questions by cartoons or superheroes. We're not out of bounds. Oh, you're 1 foot out of bounds. Can you push over? What about those large cleavage ladies over there? Oh, okay, we'll talk to them later. Well, about 45 minutes later, nobody has talked to them. So apart from the obvious analogy that somehow these are virtual cages and street performers are becoming the caged humans in a movie called Planet of the Apes, there's also a reason why the movie series Paul Blart Mall Cop has been so entertaining, because it's somewhat founded on real statistics as well. Us street performers have seen many of the FSC first week or second week security officers that not only act like they just passed the police academy test and become overzealous in their arbitrary interpretation of the laws, but now when you have 27 circles, how are you going to prevent from certain factions of 6 or 8 people that know each other signing up one each, taking up about 1/3 of the circles available? You can always prove an occurrence. If something happens in a performance circle, you know who to make responsible. You cannot prove a non-occurrence. So if 4 people, or let's say 7 people sign up for 7 circles, but then magically are not there, just to monopolize the areas and the lack of conflicting with each other and monopolizing the earnings, that seems very difficult to monitor.
I'm Josh Race. I do Michael Myers on Fremont. One big issue I want to address is the 2-hour thing. I know some of us walk around. If you do the spots, are you going to make the people walking around stop? Because it's going to, for me, that's how I make my money. You know, I know some of these people make money, you know, for a living. I do it for food in the house and a roof over my head. If you change everyone 2 hours, do you think that's going to make a riot? Because you're going to have people fighting over, you know, registered people, you know, fighting for one circle. And that, to me, that's going to cause a riot. Also, you know, I know some people stand around at one spot, certain spot, because that's where they make their money. So if you move them, they're going to lose money. And that's my biggest thing. And if I move around for 2 hours and I can't walk around, I may not be able to pay rent, and I might be on the streets again. So I just want to let you guys know. Thank you.
One of the things that I'm concerned is that when I do shows, I've been in Fremont Street already for quite a long time, and in all the years that I've been there, I've been working only in 2 places for one reason, respecting the rules of Fremont Street. So I'm trying to keep away from the stores. The problem is that when I do shows, I make big crowds. My crowds are big. And that is one of the reasons why I don't move that much. So in all the years of being working on Fremont, I'm always in the same place, just because I don't want to bother all the stores next to me because the crowd's getting so big. So that's one thing that I'm concerned about it. So.
Before we go to the next speaker, let me just tell you that I have here parking permits that give you free parking for 2 hours. I know some people have decided to leave early. I'll give them to Councilman Barlow. If anybody does leave early and you want to take advantage of the free parking, we'll have the permits over here. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
That's okay. My name is Angelina Ayala. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I'm a tourist. And for the past month and a half, I've actually gone down to Fremont Experience. And I can say, as a tourist, I have seen a lot of these people perform and have respect and try to follow the rules. But one thing that, as a tourist, it just, you know, kind of scares me, like last night. I had a homeless person who was panhandling, and because I said no, tried taking my wedding band, which is a 6.2 carat ring, and it actually was a performer who actually got involved. But when I look at these people, they became my family. I go every night because I enjoy the way they are professional, the way they perform, they respect the tourists. And the city council, by putting these little circles, I've been done a lot of traveling. I've seen street performers. It would cause a chaos for some of these people. And these people here, they're out there to make money and also respect tourists like me. So I'm asking that the council have consideration for us tourists. We enjoy these people on Fremont Experience. Don't change things where they're not able to make their money and support themselves and their families. I'd rather see that the council work on the people that are out there panhandling and looking for items to steal from us tourists like me. That's something that the police department and the city council needs to address, is the panhandlers and the homeless people that are out there causing problems, not these young people that are trying to make money to support their families. That's all I need to say as a tourist. Thank you.
Hello, we're the Pirates of Fremont Street. This is my wife. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. I will be as brief as possible and to the point. Let's start with the time, place, and manner restrictions proposed under this new ordinance. Now, this comes from the Constitution. All time, place, manner restrictions are to do with the First Amendment, must provide speakers with alternative channels for communicating ideas or disseminating information. Unlike millionaire moguls and corporate giants, the average person on the street does not commonly communicate through the mass media. Most people do not hold press conferences, and if they did, few members of the media would attend. Instead, the great bulk of communication takes place through the circulation of leaflets, handbills, pamphlets, and other First Amendment activities, which people can see, distribute, and read in a cheap and efficient manner. As a result, courts are generally sensitive to protecting these modes of communication, and TPM restrictions limiting distribution and First Amendment practices usually founder. TPM restrictions are tested in this manner. Number one, they must be content neutral. Number two, must be narrowly tailored. Number three, to further a significant government interest. Number four, must leave alternative channels of communication. With this being said, whether it be 5 minutes, 2 hours, or 1 week, any pause or suspension of my First Amendment rights is just that, a suspension of my constitutional rights. So while a performance zone is constitutional, and moving performance zones every 2 hours is constitutional, any suspension of my First Amendment rights is not constitutional. For example, if after performing for 2 hours in a performance zone, I go to move into another zone but cannot because all zones are occupied, I would then ask an official for an alternative channel to practice my First Amendment right. If an alternative channel cannot be provided, for example, my wife and I would then cease to follow this ordinance and practice our First Amendment rights outside of a performance zone. However, under the new proposed ordinance, we would be charged with a misdemeanor, which is in fact a forced suspension of constitutional rights under threat of law. Any suspension of constitutional rights is unconstitutional, and only the President of the United States may suspend my rights under the Constitution in a time of martial law or national disaster. My wife and I will follow this ordinance until the time we have no performance zone to stand in. My question is, why a new ordinance? Every law needed to rid Fremont of the illegal and distasteful behavior is already in existence and on the books. It just conveniently has not been enforced. If it had, we simply would not be in this situation. The illegal and distasteful behavior has been recorded, reported, and ignored. As for the issue of street performers damaging Fremont revenue, my wife and I have been featured in many publications, domestic and internationally. We are well-rounded in TV, stage, and are listed on several travel websites from France, Canada, and Latin nations as a must-see on Fremont. Hypothetically, if we discourage these tour groups from Fremont, then it conclusively could be said that we have negatively impacted revenue for Fremont. Until then, it is a fact that we have done nothing but encourage revenue for Fremont. We work hard. We hand-make 100% of our historical outfits, not costumes, and put 100% into what we do. Street performance dates back to antiquity. And alongside, theater is the oldest form of entertainment. In fact, Benjamin Franklin was a practicing street performer, and we are very proud to be members of a long history of proud, renowned street performers. For example, Mozart Amadeus. Instead, we are continuously slandered and treated like second-class citizens on Fremont. We are not even allowed the basic human right to use the restroom. Hypothetically speaking, if this ordinance became unconstitutional and we had no place to stand, and every or a majority of street performers refused to stand in a performance zone on the basis that there were not enough performance zones, is it realistic that Metro would waste the time, money, and manpower to arrest every street performer on Fremont and ignore real threats and significant problems otherwise happening in the city? Now, all that being said, there is one quote that I would like to adopt from City Council. And I would like I'd highly suggest my fellow street performers to take heed to this. No taste, no talent, no tip. That's it.
And I just have a very small thing to add. I am Renee. I am his wife. I am the person that creates these costumes for us. We stand, thank you, united on all fronts. Well, actually, historically speaking, if you use the word costume, that's what they used to call their wardrobe. Anyhow, we've been out there 7 years. We've seen good, bad, really ugly, really, really ugly, really fun, really funny. There does need to be some form of a commitment from Fremont Street Experience, Metro, street performers, the casinos, and City Council to all band together to make it a positive thing, because potentially it looks like it's going to create a lot of problems. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zenon Sky. I've been doing this 5 years. Primarily, I've been one of the KISS guys, mostly Paul Stanley. And from the day I first started, I always thought, even before there were ordinances, all right, I'm gonna do basic things. I'm not gonna go ahead and, steal the thunder of the bands that are playing, or go inside a casino and take pictures for tips, or do any of these things that a lot of street performers have done, unfortunately, that have brought upon these problems to have these ordinances created in the first place. I was looked at as a privilege to do that. I have to address three things. Number one, I find it curious that, from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m., that's not divisible by 2. So there's going to be a 3-hour thing there somewhere. Secondly, sometimes I work solo, sometimes as a duo, a trio, 4 people. If you have 6 feet, all right, conceivably 4 KISS guys could stand in 6 feet, but are people going to micromanage, oh, you're a half an inch over or something like that? That to me is kind of preposterous. And to piggyback on what my old partner Gary Down said earlier, first off, it was not a taser. Tasers, to my knowledge, are not legal to be carried by citizens. We had stun guns. And the reason why we had those in the first place is because I first started on the Strip. And within a week, there was a Michael Jackson guy who actually no longer street performs. He's in a show in different places. And he was hassled so much that he said, I went and got one of these. And, looked at the legal right to have it. And so I went ahead and got one too. And I encouraged a few street performers to have it too for safety's sake. So we were well within our rights to use that. I had mine on me. That video is available on YouTube, and certainly it was just to defend ourselves. So thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Heather Baresi. I'm a street performer down in Fremont. I'm a hot air balloon that makes balloon animals for kids. I just have a few concerns with the new regulation. When I get into my costume, I get into my costume at the beginning of the night, and I'm on. I'm performing for the rest of the night. I have a hot air balloon costume that blinks. Everybody's seeing me from the moment I walk onto Fremont Street, and I am just one after another, kids, the whole night. So the 2-hour rule would be very bad for me, not only because I would probably be arrested because 50% of my night would be turning down children because I have to stand in a staging area for 2 hours. So I'm there in my blinking costume. There's children all around me, and I have to tell them, no, you can't have a balloon. I have to get into this circle. Literally, that ruins my right to perform. I don't feel good about performing anymore because I have to turn down children 50% of my night. I feel like that's not fair. And how are you guys going to stop kids from coming up to me and, demanding balloons? Another problem I have with the spots is the spot I've chosen on Fremont Street is for safety. I have been violently attacked on Fremont Street down by the Whiskey Liquor Bar at Binion's. I am terrified to stand at that end of Fremont Street. I was attacked by a group of people, several of which continued to beat on me. Nobody stopped it. There was no security. There was no police. There was only people wanted to tape it for the crowd. I had a black eye. It was terrifying. So now I am physically scared to stand at that side of Fremont. And who's going to guarantee my safety? Because before, when I would have bad people come up to me, I was able to simply leave the area and go to the other side of Fremont so they wouldn't be able to come back and physically hurt me over and over again during the night. Now that you guys are demanding that I stand in a 6-foot circle, I am basically on display for anyone to come back and hurt me. Are you guys going to take responsibility? Because now I can't stand. You've told me where I can stand, not where I can't. So now I feel like you guys have to take responsibility for my safety, saying that I have to perform. If I want to come out and use my First Amendment rights, I have to perform in a certain area that is detrimental to my safety. I basically perform for the joy of performance. Many, I don't know, it seems like a lot of people act like we're out here to work. This is not a job. This is a performance. We will be tipped for what we do. This is for the love of what we do. I and many other people have jobs. If you require us to come down and sign up at a certain time, that means I have to take time out of my day. I can't go to work. I have to go up and sign up for these spots, and then I can't really perform how I want to perform. So all you'll be left with is homeless people that have nothing better to do than sit around and wait for a 2-hour spot. One more thing I wanted to say is, we can enforce the laws we already have. Everybody's talking on the internet like this bill is going to clean up Fremont. It's not going to do anything about what everybody on the internet's complaining about, which is the nudity and the classlessness. This law is not going to make that any better. Underboob pasties are illegal in Las Vegas. As I read the law, anything under the nipple is illegal. They could just put a stop to all pasties if they wanted to with the laws they already have. To continue to regulate just causes more problems. Everyone's saying, this is going to clean up the streets, this is going to clean up the streets. They're not stopping anyone from performing, so there still will be naked people out there. And when there's a naked person standing next to me in the staging area, I can't give balloons to kids, because right now when naked people stand next to me, the people come over to me and say, can you come over here to perform for my children, because I don't want them to see these people. So now I can't walk 10 feet over and make a balloon for a child. Again, children are unhappy. Fremont's already not a place for children. I'm the only thing down there for children. Children really enjoy what I do. And you guys will just be hurting families and children down at Fremont when you do this. And it's going to push all the professionals to the strip. Because I'm not going to comply with these new rules. I'm simply going to go to the strip where you're allowed to perform how you want. And then all that's going to be left, again, are the people that are desperate and doing this for the wrong reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gerald Morrison. I'm the Lost Baby in Las Vegas. A lot of people can't judge a book by its cover, but I've traveled the world. I've been in 16 different countries. I've seen a lot of places, including India, Bangladesh. I enjoy Las Vegas. I've been here for 3 years. I've been performing on Fremont. I'm also a property manager here in Las Vegas. I have 278 units that I manage here in Las Vegas. I go from California to Las Vegas to New York. I spend my time all over traveling, and on my spare time, I enjoy entertaining out on Fremont Street Experience. I have been on TV for 16 years. I started when I was 6 years old on a kid show called The Cowboy Bob Show. I've done over 178 commercials. In 1978, I did the very first macaroni and cheese commercial for Kraft. I have seen a lot of stuff on Fremont Street in the last 3 years that I've been here. I have a sheriff's card. I've got a clean background. I've traveled the world. There's people out there on Fremont that hasn't had that privilege of life that I've had. You can't judge everybody, but there is some changes that need to be made at Fremont. But I think making the circles on Fremont and making people that are, that are clean and no criminal background, making them suffer for a circle that they have to may stand in the high heat. We have people that are in the wheelchairs that could possibly have a heart attack or a heat stroke from being out in the heat. And if they get signed a circle out there, it's just going to be more trouble for the cosmetics, for the Metro. And I want to thank the Metro for serving their time out there on Fremont. Thank you guys so much for coming out there and watching over us. And, I've been out there, and I'm amazed by the street performers that are out there because they don't drink on the job. They're not causing problems. There's a very few that does cause a problem, and the security and Metro is on them as soon as it happens. But I don't see a lot of fights out there, and I think the change that they're trying to call for isn't a good change. So please, if you guys want to come out and judge Fremont, come out and see the characters out there and see what we do out there. I don't make a lot of money, but I come to Vegas because maybe one day I'll get noticed. Thank you.
James Kelsey. I do a comedy magic show. It's mostly magic. I'm not very funny, but that's beside the point. A good friend of mine over here mentioned something that was pretty important to me, which was I work with the large crowd, and I was very curious about what the rotation system specifically would look like, in that if I wait from 2 to 3 to have a choicy spot, a spot that works, that's empty, and I can have a large crowd in, and work from 3 to 5, and then want to continue to work, can I now go and wait in line for a spot that is also just as empty and wide for me to have a large crowd, or do I now have to go to the next spot in the rotation that will require me to be in a smaller, more condensed area that will annoy Fremont with my large size crowds? That's something I'm very curious about, wondering about. The other thing was that I'm very curious about as well is how Metro specifically will be dealing with the very blurry line between a performer and a panhandler. For example, if I was doing my show in my spot as a performer, as the ordinance says, and another magician, not that any of the magicians on Fremont would do this, but another magician were to set up directly next to me and claim to be a panhandler and be accepting tips in the same way, what would Metro be able to do about it if the person were claiming to be a panhandler? Other than that, I am very willing to try out the system, but I do have some major concerns like that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ray. I'm not a street performer or really have anything to do with this. I just like going down to Fremont Street and having a fun time and watching other people have a fun time. I think that you guys have probably done your studies and realized that the street performers have increased the tourism over the years. I know that it's changed a little bit, but you know, this should be common sense. Why don't you just ask the tourists? That is the most important thing. That's what brings money to Vegas. And go out there and do a secret survey. Ask the tourists, you want to have more street performers or less street performers? I think it's common sense that they like them. They pay them money. Of course they would like to have more street performers. This is going to not only cut that number down, but it will eventually take away from the tourism on Fremont Street. And the only other thing I have to say is that there's a lot of, when you're cutting down on these numbers, you're also cutting down on Vegas being the land of opportunity, because there's a lot of talent that I see starting out on Fremont Street, and the next thing you know, they got a show at the V, you know, they're in the V show at Planet Hollywood or something like that. So I just think that you ought to let these people do what they want to do and have free reign to do it. Thank you.
Please bear with me because I'm not the best reader in the world. I wrote you guys a little letter about how I feel about what's going on and things that might help, things that may not. To whom it may concern. I am Julie C. Langell. I have lived and been a professional dancer and entertainer in Las Vegas for the past 19 years. I've been in production shows on the Strip and surrounding areas. I have choreographed production shows. I've had my own show in Las Vegas. And I've also been a street performer for the past 6 years. I exercise my First Amendment right frequently with my friends. And we've all read and we understand the First Amendment right. And we fall within the First Amendment right. And we do what we do with some kind of integrity and a whole lot of fun. And I think that, well, basically, I'm not going to read what I have to say. I'll give you a copy of it. But basically what's happening is there are people that are doing business on the street. And while it is kind of lucrative to be doing business on the street, they aren't paying rent to be there. The kiosks are paying rent to be there. Cashman Photos has the photo rights on Fremont Street Experience, so you can't do a photo business on Fremont Street Experience. And once you're doing that, that's not lawful. And also, them doing business doesn't fall within the First Amendment right. There's a majority of the people that are doing this, several companies outside doing this. And also, within this, you know, there is obscene behavior and there is pornography going on Fremont Street experience every day. And sometimes we have to move 2 or 3 times to stay away from that. So, I mean, it's a little difficult. I mean, personally, I don't like that, you know, and I'm not the government or anything else, you know, but I do have a valid concern about that. I do honestly and wholeheartedly think it makes the street look bad. And, you know, I have to be honest, and that's honest. I'm so shaky because I'm so embarrassed. I don't shake like this when I entertain. The last part is my question, and my question is, are the majority of the people and their bosses going to be able to continue, quote unquote, working under the new ordinances if they are passed on Fremont Street? Because I don't know that that's fair to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hello, my name is Marin Hauser. About 10 years ago, I started being a street performer in Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Venice Beach, as well as Hollywood Boulevard. That eventually brought me to Las Vegas roughly about 6 years ago. I started working downtown, not working, excuse me, pardon the expression. I started working here in Vegas, but practicing my First Amendment right, exercising that downtown, just over 6 years ago. I was one of the first of several characters that were out on the street, and there was a professional environment. There was, about maybe 1/10 of what's out there now, which is, I would like to add that Las Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world. And, we actually had some pride back then, and we actually had some talent, and we actually were there exercising that, and it was a great avenue for us to network and actually get other jobs in this city and get involved in other things that actually pay money and, are actually legitimate outside of exercising our First Amendment right. And I'd also like to add that we've never, I say we as in myself and a couple others I used to work with, and some I work with now, like the last gal that was up there, Julie, we give away pictures for free. When people ask if they want a photo, they don't have no money, we say it's okay, because legally, your First Amendment right says that you must carry out your act or performance regardless if you're going to get tipped or not. So if you're unaware of that, also pictures lead to pictures. Think about it. That's basically all I'd like to say. Thank you very much. Can do it. Yeah, right?
Thank you. There's, as union president and general counsel and representing majority of the workers on Fremont Street in the Strip, I have to be very diplomatic, even when I want to get angry at some words from Councilman Bob Cox. Coffin. I'm sorry, there was a Bob Cox in another city that was a councilman I used to live in. One of the big problems here is it's money and control. Some of this money and control comes not from you, not from Fremont Street, but the casinos who want to own the sidewalks, and they can't in this country. And they're trying to exert control and pressure, and I've dealt with this in court things before in Clark County, where they assume control of the sidewalk. They can't do that. That's a public place, quasi-public. The prune yard decision is almost ignored in this valley, which allows us to be there, among other things. Now, the biggest problem is I've identified 13 steps that define a multi-employer control of these performers. Dangerously walking into this because you keep advancing on these controls, and what's happened is you've ignored that you're becoming a de facto employer. The City Council, Fremont Street experience, some of the casinos. Mr. Jarek, you must know about employer control tests. There's 19 steps in most states. 13 have been reached in this occasion here. We have an employer definable in the National Labor Relations Board. We should be sitting down together and working this out. And if we work it out, we can self-police. We can self-regulate without violating the Constitution. And anything that's reasonable and lawful from the city, Fremont Street, as union president, I can take to the members and get that in writing, and we can get it worked out. We could do an experiment and police ourselves with an organized fashion. If we do this, revenue for everybody can go up. If we work with the casinos, we work with Fremont Street, maybe 30 or 40% from what I estimate. Do some kind of joint marketing plan for tourism to show that we got street performers that are clean, regardless of their talent, because talent is not the threshold for them to be there. The Constitution is. The least of us can be there. We have some very super talented people in this room that have almost an elitist attitude that they have a right to be there compared to a poor performer. We all have the equal rights to be there. Even the panhandler says, "Why lie and need a beer?" Is he in good taste? Is he something I want to see? I have about a half dozen people I wouldn't like to see when I'm performing out there. However, I can't infringe upon their rights because I don't like the way they look. I'm sure there's people that don't like the way I look when I perform. And the thing is, we have to protect the Constitution. I don't want to blame you guys. I don't want to make it personal. But the Santa Monica Venice Beach thing is an attack on the heart of the United States of America and our Constitution. Once you start unraveling our constitutional rights, it spreads to other cities. And that powerful forces, money forces, will utilize that to limit the union speech. The other union brother that was here, one thing I was disappointed about is he said he didn't care about the street performers. I've been trying to get a meeting with the Central Labor Council to say this can affect you guys. And it can. And I'm not saying you guys have any wrongful intent. I know Coffin has said some very inflammatory things here. And I wish Bob would meet with us and try to see that we have a human face. The young man, Jeff, that spoke in the tank top, that's the heart of it. He's going to be homeless, he's going to be out of work, and everything else. If this thing is passed the way it is, 120 people are gone overnight. They will lose their means of income and means to support themselves. And the only way we can remedy this is with collective action and sitting down with open minds and open hearts to protect the Constitution for all of us. I will make myself available any time or day or night to meet over this. You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank you. We have two more speakers, and then Brad and I will go ahead and conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Adam Flowers. I'm a street performer on Fremont Street. I've been out there for almost 6 years now. And I appreciate everybody that's come up and said something before me. I've gotten a lot out of everything that you guys have said. I, like some of you, have stood out there on the street performing and watched the street change over the past 6 years. When I first showed up out there and the first ordinance was passed back in 2011, it allowed us to bring amplifiers out there to do our acts more effectively. There were performers that would walk up and down the street, characters, great impersonators, and I've watched that change. Seems as if the limits have been pushed more and more, which is everybody's constitutional right. It's their First Amendment right to express themselves the way they want to, whether they want to wear a diaper or they want to wear a banana hammock. But everybody has that opportunity and then that right in the country. If you can walk down Maryland Parkway in a diaper, why can't you walk down Fremont Street in a diaper? The only thing I don't understand is if you walk down Maryland Parkway in a diaper, stand in front of Denny's, somebody's going to call the police. And the nice policeman's going to come up and ask you, "What are you doing out here in a diaper? Maybe we ought to have you checked out. Or maybe you ought to head down to Fremont Street, because that's where everybody does that." I don't understand why that is. So a couple of years ago, I started an organization, Street Performers and Artists of Nevada, and opened up membership to street performers. We set down a value system and a mission statement that we wanted to uplift the public's perception of street performers. We wanted to present ourselves in a cleanly fashion. We didn't want to do things like harass tourists. Some things that the city the government can't enforce, like cleanliness. I mean, everybody can go out there, and you don't have to take a shower to live in this country. But to be a member of the organization, the Street Performers and Artists of Nevada, SPAN, you have to do that to be a member. So we started that and retained Alan Lichtenstein as our attorney, and we want to thank the council, the city attorney, the ACLU, and Fremont Street Experience people for sitting down with us and listening to our concerns and putting this new ordinance together. We've pushed ideas back and forth across the table as to how this could work. As a matter of fact, the idea to form SPAN came from Metro. We sat down with, at the time it was Captain Anderson, downtown Metro Command, and he suggested to us that we ought to start something up and talk to our councilmen and let our concerns be known. And in the past year, Captain Walsh has reached out to us, and we've actually sat through See Something, Say Something seminars down at Metro Command to be part of the community, to give back a little bit to the community, do what we can do to work together. There's a few things in the ordinance, the current ordinance, that we would like to talk about. The specified time frame, 11/68/020, if it's every odd hour on the hour, should be between 3 p.m. and 1 a.m., not 2 a.m., or 3 p.m. to 3 a.m., but 3 to 1 doesn't, or 3 to, actually it's 3 till 2, so 3 to 1 would work. Sealed lead acid batteries. There's people out there that have amplification, and we understand, and you guys forwarded to us the fire department's code, what they're looking for. And we understand that marine car batteries can be a fire hazard. Also signal cables like microphone cords. There's singers that have 3 singers with long cords stretched out 10, 12 feet from their equipment that can be tripping hazards. We'd like it to read something different, like any individual or group of car, marine, or similar sealed lead acid batteries, unless integral to the commercially manufactured appliance or amplifier being powered. Power inverters or similar configurations that are not part of a self-contained appliance should not be allowed. External signal cables longer than 2 feet also shouldn't be permitted. There's a fire lane that goes through the center of Fremont Street. It's never been enforced before. We've never been told we can't keep our crowds in it, but the ordinance does read that we're not allowed within 20 feet of the fire lane. We feel that ought to be changed. The 200-foot rule that's currently enforced from the stages, that limits the street performers when those stages are active, which currently in the evenings from 6 p.m. till maybe 1 in the morning, it limits the street performers to about 2 blocks of the 5 blocks of Fremont Street. You guys are crowded into 2 blocks right now. You're all shaking your heads because it's like walking a gauntlet of street performers to the tourists because we're all tight together. This new ordinance is 100 feet from the stages, but by creating these spots, which right now, you guys have spots. They're organically created. We've made them. I know where I like to perform. You guys know where you like to stand. By creating these spot systems, we're opening up all 5 blocks of Fremont Street. We're making spots all the way down. If you guys look at the map there, there's a lot of places. One of our members of SPAN went and walked the street last Saturday night, and counted groups and individuals and came up with 35 groups. I'm getting to it, Councilman, for sure. There will be plenty of spots with this ordinance, which brings me to this map. Here you go. I said over to you. We throw the map into Photoshop, and right now I believe there's 36 spots, and with the stages open, there's about 22. It's 38 and 27. This map right here has 45 spots on it. and they're in accordance with the 6-foot, 40-foot distance separations. With all 3 stages open, there would still be 36 spots on that. So I'd like to take a look at that. The noise level right now for the sound amplification is 103 decibels. Basically, you can be louder from 1 a.m. until 3 p.m., but from 3 p.m. until 1 a.m., when it's loud on the street and the ambient noise is loud, we have to be quieter. We'd like that reversed. We'd like that to be different. Louder when it's louder out on the street. We also would like, if Fremont Street decides to employ street performers, that they were to abide to the same regulations that all the other street performers have to abide to. Kiosks also have to abide to the sound levels. And the Fremont Street experience closes the pedestrian mall sometimes. New Year's Eve, maybe NASCAR comes to town and they spread NASCARs out on the street, sometimes cover up the areas that we work. I'll wrap it up. We'd like to limit that to so many days a year, whether it's 12 days a year, 18 days a year, and give us notice, at least 30 days notice, so that we have time to rearrange our lives. And also the sound decibel levels that we're allowed to be should apply to Fremont Street, except during celestial light shows and directly in front of stages that are active. And last but not least here, the spot system. As far as the rotation, it's not a rotation, but it's a reservation. It's a first come, first serve. But we'd like to have something in the ordinance that really specifies you can't reserve, you can't hold, barter, trade, sell, buy spots from other performers, so that we don't have that type of thing going on Fremont Street. So people, they get there and it's fair. So if you want to, and any of you are interested in joining SPAN, our site is vegasstreetperformer.com. You can read more about what we do, and there's a membership application on the site. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alan Lichtenstein. I am not a street performer. I have been accused of impersonating a lawyer on occasion, but I just want to be very brief about this. When we first talked about this particular possibility well over a year ago, talked about some of the issues, what has been proposed right now, what is sitting there right now, we both know won't work. There's things that were even agreed to in terms of language that somehow didn't find their way in there. It needs a fair amount of work. Part of it is, and part, in terms of the constitutionality, well, indulge me for a second. Part of the problem really is that this was built on a model that no longer applies because it wasn't supposed to be a public forum. It was supposed to be more like the Chicago Pier, where it's something that can be controlled. We went through enough court decisions, so now you've got Fremont Street Limited Liability Company, Experience Limited Liability Company, actually competing with these people. These people have the constitutional right to be out there. Fremont Street has a contract. And so what's going to be necessary, if anything is going to work, is one where everyone's going to have to be giving a little bit, including that company. And I don't think that's hit yet, that they can't do what they want. They can't have their people out there as having a special status. The courts won't go for that, and I think you're aware of that, Ren. In terms of just the general, I mean, besides the tinkering with the language, which will absolutely be necessary, otherwise it's not going to go anywhere. I would hope that within the meetings that go forward, some of that can be done. But one fundamental question is going to be, and I don't know the answer to it, I'm not sure anyone else does either. Someone had mentioned intermediate scrutiny, and is there enough available alternate means of communication? With the number of people and the number of communications and the number of spots, if it turns out that too many people will be precluded from too much in the way of their ability to speak, Forget about earning a living, because that's not part of it, but just their ability for the way to speak. So now maybe they can get 1 hour a week or something like that. And that's shown at an evidentiary hearing. My guess is the whole thing will fall apart. So that's something that really needs to be looked at. Is this practical in terms of the volume? Because as everyone else has said, good performers, bad performers, panhandlers, or whatever, under the Constitution, they have the same right. And if it's curtailed too much, somewhat can be okay, but if it ends up being curtailed too much, the whole house of cards will fall apart. So I would just suggest not rushing into this. I know that there's a lot of push for that, but really look at doing something that won't get thrown out by the court. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let me thank you, first of all, for coming. Can I make a couple of observations? One, I owed some of you an answer to your questions. Mr. Lichtenstein, I invite you, as I've invited you before, and I thank you for all your input. If you have written suggestions, send them to us. That has been an open invitation from day one. It continues to be one now. If you see parts of the ordinance that you discover after you leave here that may need correction, I will concede the hours. When we moved it from every hour on the hour to every 2 hours, we did not make that adjustment. That needs to be corrected. When it comes to batteries, Mr. Flowers, I understand your position. We'll work that language out for you because I think you know what we're trying to accomplish here. We want to keep unsafe type of batteries out that explode or could leak or things like that if they're integral to your equipment or part of it, and don't do that. I'm sure we can work that language out. But before we go any further, I just want to ask for a show of hands. How many of you currently belong to Street Performers or Artists of Nevada? I'm sorry? Okay. Maybe I could ask it a different way. How many of you currently consider yourselves part of an organization, union or not? Do you communicate with the other, even in an informal manner? Okay. And the reason I'm asking is because please put yourself on our shoes for just a moment. You can only know what you know. And in the case of street performers, those of you who are very interested in this ordinance are here today. There are many who are not. There are many who do not consider themselves part of an organization, nor do they want to be part of an organization. I've had street performers come to me and say, I'm professional. I make my own costume. I hold myself out as a professional, and I'm performing next to the guy who goes to Walmart and buys a Spider-Man costume who scares people away. As you've heard today, when people make observations about the First Amendment, it doesn't exist to protect most of you from speech that people agree with. It exists to protect people from speech they don't agree with. And those are the people that have been referred to here today as distasteful or obscene or pornographic. As much as we can all probably agree that they do not enhance the Fremont Street performance environment, and for those of you who make balloon animals or perform exclusively for kids in Disney character costumes or something like that, it certainly is not going to enhance that. The First Amendment protects them almost more than it protects the rest of us, because it's their speech that comes under attack more than ours. And that's why we have a very, very difficult time crafting these kinds of ordinances. Because to deal with people who as a group want to work together toward an organization and toward a scheme, which we would love to be able to say, Mr. Moore, to any of you, please come to us as a group and tell us how you prefer to organize this in a way that solves the problem without doing any more than just solving the problem. We'd be right there right now. But that group doesn't exist. Please.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It gets a little emotional for me, too. I'm a human being involved in this. Is there an independent, mutually agreeable third party that we could demonstrate a card check to, that we show that we represent a majority of the performers on Fremont Street?
We could arrange something like that.
Yeah, I would be willing to put the cards down. They see it in camera. Nobody knows the identity.
Please give me a moment, because we listen to all of you, and I'm trying to tie this all together in a way that moves us forward. A friend of mine told me a long time ago something that I really believe. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We are here to achieve a good thing. We wouldn't have invited you to this meeting unless we wanted to achieve it together. There is no perfect solution, and we know that. We are not going into this blind thinking that a performance zone, whether it's an hour or 2 hours or none at all, is going to solve something completely. But it might solve a lot. I don't know. That's why we want to hear from you. We don't know that we picked the hours right. We don't know that we picked a lot of things right. That's why we want your input. But at the end of the day, please don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because what we're trying to achieve here is a better environment for all of us. Let me go to some of the comments. And first of all, to the pirates, for want of a better term, I really respect your presentation. We are obviously aware that First Amendment has virtually no limitations, but it's not unlimited. We all know you can't scream fire in a crowded movie house. That speech is not protected. You can't go to a bank and say, I'm here to rob you, and then say that note's protected by First Amendment. You can't utter fighting words that are protected by the First Amendment. And even if you don't fall under those categories, you can do limited time, place, and manner restrictions, but only if they're the least restrictive possible and you've tried other alternatives. I've been doing this job for 23 years now. We have had about 4 different ordinances on the books, and each one over time has revealed a defect. And the current defect, and to be perfectly blunt, is that this one is virtually unenforceable. Performers don't know where they can be all the time. There seems to be bunching and crowding from time to time. Forget about the observations about people that you consider to be distasteful and the like. Even amongst the most talented of you, there are competition for spaces, and there's confusion in the mall. And that is something we're trying to relieve. There will be no solution from today's meeting. It's a dialogue, and I want it to be a continuing dialogue. And if any of you want to meet with me after the meeting, I'll be glad to stay with you as long as you want to stay, and I'll be glad to listen to you. Let me just state a couple of other things real quick. I made a lot of notes here, and I just want to see if I cover the most important of them. First of all, fire lane down the middle. I do want to make a correction there. That is not a fire lane down the middle. It is where the fire department will drive a truck if necessary. It is not an official fire lane, so distance separations do not apply to that meandering S-shaped thing through the middle of the mall. I'll state that on the record. That won't ever be enforced as a fire lane, but all the other distances will. Let me ask another couple of questions if I could. I think I know what the answer is going to be to this, but let me tell you that when we started with performance zones, we don't care what the number is, as long as it's the maximum number possible. So if, Mr. Flowers, if you manage to find a way to put 45 out there instead of 38, we're all for you. That's not an issue. If you can get 50 out there, given the rules, away from doorways, away from kiosks, 40 feet from each other, as many as you can possibly get out there, if you're more clever than we are, all the more power to you. We're for that. Having said that, and we've got these performance zones, how many of you are in favor of a performance zone in some form? Forget about hours for a moment and forget about size for a moment, but a performance zone, period. Could I have a show of hands who would support it first? And how many would be against it? A performance zone of any sort. The question is, forget about how many performance zones. Let's assume we maximize them all, have as many out there as we can possibly have, given that they'll be 40 feet apart and away from doorways and kiosks and the like. How many are in favor of some form of performance zone? Forget about the details for a moment, whether it's an hour or 2 hours that you rotate or you stay there all night in one performance zone. How many would be in favor of some type of performance zone in the mall? How many would be against? Okay. Let me ask the next question. If we are going to have a performance zone, and again, we don't really care about how long you're in a zone. Mr. Flowers will tell you, we started with 1 hour. When Mr. Flowers said we might have to pack up a lot of equipment and move it, we changed it to 2 hours. We don't have an issue with the hours as long as there's equal opportunity if there's going to be a rotation. So that's the next question. How many of you favor a time limit of some sort, forget about the number, for how long you occupy a performance zone? I would just like to see. I see no hands. So how many favor no time limit if you're in a performance zone? That's everyone. Okay. You know, with that vote come monopolization of a zone and only a fixed number of people. If we went with that, and there were only 45 zones, only 45 people would be able to perform every night. Okay? Okay, let's get to that. We're going to break this down a bit at a time. Okay, I've got a feel for where you stand on the zones and the time limits and things like that. Let me ask, please let me, I give you your chance. Please give me mine, and I'll stick around at the end to listen to you. But I'm trying to survey you a little bit right now to know where you stand. With respect to the registration system that was described, and I'll be glad to go through it again if you need me to, how many of you favor some form of registration system? This is free. This is not given to other people to do background checks on you or anything like that. Everything I described at the beginning. Some form of registration system. Okay? Against any form of registration system. Permit system. Taking it beyond registration, you actually need a permit that would be permission, a fee, and the like to perform. A permit system. And I gather the rest of you are no permit. Okay. Those are my questions. Those are my questions. Again, we're in the middle of this process. We wanted to put something in front of you that you could see what our goal is. Again, we are not interested in doing anything more than helping make this environment safer for everybody. I can tell you right now, Mayor Goodman had to leave. If you want to talk about the input that we receive, and believe it or not, I've received letters complimenting several of you on your performances, and they say, we love to come down because we love this performer, we love this, we love this. But about 95% of the things that I get that are forwarded to me through the council, Councilman Barlow's office, who represents half the street, through the mayor's office, are letters dealing with the environment downtown, how they don't feel safe, how they're not coming back to Fremont Street ever again, how they'll never bring a child down here ever again. I'm not directing this criticism at you. I'm just telling you that what we get and what we're trying to respond to, and how they want us to do something to clean it up. And as you know, there is nothing that can be done about individuals that people consider distasteful. Distasteful's not against the law. Pornographics, not against the law. Obscene is against the law. And it's got a very specific definition. And in the case of individuals who wear pasties, according to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, they are well within their rights, and there's no legislation this council could enact to stop it. That is just a fact of life. And so there are other things we could discuss, at length as well. Mr. Moore? I don't know that we're looking at the same numbers. Right now downtown there are 2 hotels that don't have any rooms open, and they were open a few years ago. I'm not saying it's a direct result of street performers or anything like that, but I'm saying the environment downtown is declining. That is a fact of life. That is a reality we all have to deal with. And that has other consequences for all of us, but I'm not going to go there. Go ahead.
The other night I watched 4 fist fights during my time out on Fremont Street, all between tourists that are overly intoxicated. I think I've witnessed one altercation with the Kiss guys in Tupac where a man was arrested for having a traffic warrant involved. Nobody among us is fist fighting, and that does come from the street performers. I've been attacked about 4 times in 3 years between here and the Strip. I can defend myself so it doesn't bother me. However, if the police were there, they can enforce existing laws to remove these people, drunken public, assault and battery, aggressive panhandling, whatever it may be. We need to enforce the existing laws, and all of us are an army that can work with Metro to get right on the phone and get them out there. We're an asset.
I appreciate that. Let me just wrap this up today by saying thank you for coming down. I have, again, this has been recorded, so I'm going to take the comments and I'm going to kind of break them out. If you want to meet with me individually, I will stay here as long as I'll stay here till midnight if you want me to. By the way, I was pretty much raised on Fremont Street. My father back a long time ago had a business on Fremont Street, and that's where I lived most of my childhood. So I can appreciate the environment, and I've seen the changes down there. Councilman Barlow grew up here. He's seen this from the time he was an infant. Councilman Beers, who was here a moment ago, also grew up here. This council cares passionately for this downtown, and not just for the businesses, but for the entire environment. We want to see it become a place that people want to come. You want the same thing. You'll make a lot more. You'll attract a lot more people. You'll be a lot more successful if this works. And so believe me, that is our only goal here, and our minds are open. And again, I don't vote. I'm just trying to get some consensus as best we can to bring to the City Council on September 2nd. If you think we need another meeting, I'll be glad to sponsor it. Again, we'll probably have it here in the council chambers, and if you want to limit the issues to a few that you think, that's fine. I also invite you to take the draft that we handed out today and mark it any way you want. There's no pride of authorship here. If you think of some ideas we haven't, I'm not saying they're going to be adopted. I'm not saying we're all going to agree at the end of the day. But I want you to have a chance to take a look at it, and if you can make this better, we're with you. So with that, I want to say thank you for coming. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilkinson? Everything right now is scheduled for September 2nd. That's a regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council. They'll meet here in this chambers. Normally, there's a recommending committee that considers an ordinance the day before the council votes. That's not going to happen in this case. Rather than have 3 people consider it, this is going to the entire council, which will sit as the recommending committee. So rather than have 3 people give their feedback to 7 people, all 7 people are going to hear it as a recommending committee and then vote on it. Yes. I understand. I will pass it on to the sponsors. Councilman Barrow's a sponsor. Councilman Coffin's a sponsor. Again, keep in mind, we've been working on this for a long time, and we don't want to drop this on you at the last second. But at the same time, I'm just the attorney for the place, so I will pass your suggestion on to the council members, and we're here as long as you need us. I understand. I will pass it on. In the meantime, my invitation is still, please, if you want to stay afterwards, I want to thank you all for coming. Again, we have validation up here if you need it. Thanks again. Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's going to be chaos out there.
I only have one main concern.
Sure.
The restrooms. It has become a serious problem.
Right.
Now, I have personally been 86 out of 2 casinos. After personally going in there in street clothes, personally going to the security desk and saying, as long as I cover myself up, am I allowed to come in here and use your restrooms? Yes, ma'am, we have no problems with you. Okay. Then I go in to use the restroom, and I'm cuffed and stuff because they don't want me there because I'm the character. Now, someone can come from Fremont Street Casino that didn't spend any money in Binion's and go in and use their bathroom, and it's fine. But if we go to the bathroom, we're not allowed. No. We're humans. We have to go to the bathroom.
I totally appreciate that.
So
I understand this, and I mean no disrespect. I said I have no control over how a private business conducts itself.
Which is fine, but if my concern is, if you're going to tell me where I can be, when I can be, don't you have to supply me with restrooms close to that spot?
We haven't actually discussed that. How many of you, I've got another quick poll, how many of you think there's a need for public restrooms?
We do need public restrooms, absolutely.
I'm not saying we're going to provide them, I know what you think. Okay?
We do.
That should be part of the discussion.
One casino
that
allows us there.
Go ahead. I'm here. Who wants to start first?
That was my only concern.
Gotcha. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This 5 times. Where this doesn't.
It's the definition of, we probably need to, you give me your card all the way. In fact, I put your card up here, I'm pretty sure. Hold on. This is you, right, Jack? Let's meet individually on this, okay? Another legal issue, and I totally agree with you, so let's just say that.
Right now, it's between the definition of expressive activity and then the designated location, which means an area that has been set aside or designated in accordance with section 1168-108 for use by street performers or for engaging in expressive activity during the specified period.
We're trying to say, and like I said, we probably need to be individually, we're trying to say that zones, we can't make them just for performers. If somebody who wants expressive activity, they're not precluded from trying to apply for one. They'd have to register on there. But we're saying expressive activity, which is everything other than it can be anything except 10 people or kiosks or money, and that applies to labor as well, unless you're picketing or whatever, which is kind of so let's get together and talk about it, because I want to make sure you're satisfied. Okay?
I understand the thing about that lady being scared being down there. A lot of people don't want to come back because they're scared, from some of the stuff that's going on. What it is when they go down those side streets, you got 5 or 6 guys, big, huge guys. Usually it's black people. I'm not against black people, but that's basically a lot of black people. And a lot of people are scared because they're so big and they're drunk down the side streets, like going towards Hogs and Heifers or one of the streets down there. I believe that's the reason that they said
I think
she
you're
was
right.
scared.
And one of the things that has nothing
If
to
we
do
have
with
more
ordinance,
police,
we're looking at security as a whole and putting our people down there in addition to Metro.
Yeah, look at more police down there. You know, add 10 more police officers down there. So and have them walking around, make sure that people see police officers, they're going to know it's a little more safe that way, and especially in those areas where these guys hang out. They go into the store, they buy their beer, they sit there on those little alcoves and get drunk, and then they stand walking around. It's like
I've been there.
people are scared to walk through. I've gone over there. I go to Hogs and Heifers, a great bar. I go down there, and I'm scared going through that section myself because I'm in a wheelchair.
I understand.
So,
But thank you.
all right.
Hi, you spoke very well, by the way.
Oh, no, I was so shaky. I'm not like that when I entertain, so I was like, oh my God. But I was just still very concerned because I want to know about these people doing business on the street. Now, we can't say that we all know that it hasn't existed since the beginning, but in the beginning, they threw us all off the street, and we had to go to the ACLU. And we had to get a card that we knew how to exercise our First Amendment right before we came back. And we had to meet with the head of Fremont Security to do so. You know, and so, I mean, I'll go out there and granted, you know, I have like 50 showgirl costumes and 20 character costumes. You know, I could like put them on everybody on Fremont probably. You know, and I don't go out there and do that. I don't go run my business on that street. So what I'm saying to you is, what about these people that do it?
One
Is
component.
that not
You're talking
legal?
about the enforcement end. What we're trying to get to right now is just the ordinance end. On the enforcement end, I can tell you that we are aware that there are people out there that are doing a quid pro quo. If you give me money, I'll do this. That's business. You need a
Right,
license, and we get it.
And the ordinance, and well, if it is business and you need a license, I have a business license, but I mean, I don't pay rent on Fremont Street, so I don't think it's okay to bring a bunch of business down to Fremont Street.